out there.
New claims of media bias. Some outlets now accused of ignoring a Maryland rape case for political reasons. The suspect's mugshot there on your screen, one of them. Here's Bill O'Reilly sounding off last night.
Fox News covered the story extensively, as I said, last night. But ABC, NBC, CBS did not cover it on their nightly news broadcasts, nor did they cover it this morning, and they have hours of airtime in the morning. CNN did not cover the Maryland story in prime time last night. Ditto MSNBC. That is beyond anything I have ever seen in my 40 years plus of journalism. A story of that magnitude ignored by the national media. We all know why. Illegal immigration is a political issue. President Trump has made the apprehension of undocumented criminals a top priority. The Democratic Party is resisting that, saying that all illegal aliens are being demonized, and that presents a danger to that community.
Leslie Marshall is a syndicated radio talk show host and Fox News contributor. Ed Martin is president of Eagle Forum Fund and a former Missouri State GOP chairman. Good to see you both.
Good morning.
Leslie, I'll start with you. Do you think that's a fair criticism from Bill O'Reilly?
Well, I think it's accurate the night before last when he was on last night referring to the prior evening. But we have to look at when did this case happen, which is almost a week ago. And I did look it up. And quite frankly, not only at the time did all major and cable news networks discuss this case, both on television and online. But 19 hours ago, CNN did an update. ABC News 2 days ago. And 2 days ago, at the press briefing with Press Secretary Spicer, there was a reporter that asked the question, and all of the major networks, and I think most of the cable networks, were carrying that as well. So although he is accurate as far as who covered it then, I think it's really an issue of timing. You have Supreme Court hearings going on. You have more information coming about Trump-Russia connections. And so it wasn't ignored. It just wasn't talked about almost a week later.
Well, and Ed, I read some of the more extensive reporting on it today. The Denver Post has covered this extensively, and they talk about all of the different things that happened with these young men before they got to this place where they're now accused and charged, but again, innocent until proven guilty. It's a horrible tragedy what happened if what we're hearing is accurate and that's proven in a court of law. But the Denver Post talks about all the contacts that they had with various parts of the administration. I mean, with Border Patrol agents, with ICE, all these different places along the way. And yet they were never shut down. In fact, one of the agencies said it's unlikely, even if they'd showed up for a deportation hearing, that they would have been removed because they hadn't committed any crimes.
Right, but what Bill is talking about, Bill O'Reilly, as usual, is honing in on the problem. The problem is not that it was reported, as Leslie mentioned. It's that it wasn't covered. The fact is, this is a symbol, an emblem, an example of the broken system. These two kids, they weren't kids, they were young men, were freshmen in high school. There's a school board and a superintendent that ought to answer the question, why are we making our high schools sanctuary high schools? Can you imagine, my daughter's almost 13 years old. If she was around an 18-year-old El Salvadoran who would look and sound and feel like a real man, and we would be asking questions. So what O'Reilly's honed in on is the coverage of the broken system. And it's not just about bad grades. They're raping and killing our people. And that's what Trump won on. I mean, this election was about the win that the American people recognize, like O'Reilly does, what's going on. And that's why the media is hiding from it, because they don't want to cover it.
Well, and Leslie, this is one of those cases like Kate Steinle that people immediately have a visceral reaction to. And so it is tough, and it certainly throws a lot of gasoline on this conversation about what we do about illegal immigration in this country.
Well, I live in Los Angeles, a city that many people want to call a sanctuary city. We have the highest number of undocumented workers here, and arguably within our school system, of which 2 of my children attend. I think it's terrible to say that they are raping and murdering. If you look at the statistics on rape and murder this year, there were 3,072 murders as of yesterday morning, none committed by a Muslim, and overwhelming majority committed by Americans. I had a woman who called my radio show yesterday and said she wouldn't tell me what state she was calling from, but her daughter had been raped by 2 male classmates. She was a minor, and she was angry that nobody seems to care about it unless the perpetrators are undocumented. And I think one of the problems here is that I would agree with you, we shouldn't have 17 and 18-year-olds, whether they were born here or not, as freshmen in school. alongside
Well, but
kids
Leslie,
that
a couple
are
of things.
13
Let me say here that
13 and 14.
A couple of things here. First of all, I don't think anybody's bringing in the Muslim argument into this at all. They're just saying people who are here illegally, regardless of where they came from, what their status is. But the school notes a couple of things. First of all, these two 17 and 18-year-old who have been charged as adults, they were not in the class with the girl. They may have been in the same school structure. They weren't in the classes with her. They were in separate classes. But Ed, under Supreme Court precedent, Plyler v. Doe, public schools have to provide education to these folks who show up, whether they're here legally or illegally. The school system has to take them in.
Of course, but listen, Shannon, that's why we have elections and that's why we have the press. The press is supposed to cover these. Kate Steinle shouldn't have been killed by an illegal immigrant. This woman shouldn't have been raped by illegal immigrants. If they're raped by American citizens, those guys should go to jail. But we shouldn't have it. We should be, you're right, we should be talking about changing the law, and if we have to, changing the judges. That's what the election was about. And back to O'Reilly's point, the reason the press isn't covering it is because the American people are sick of the systems that are failing them. I know, look, if someone else is raped by bad guys, we ought to get the bad guys. But we ought not let any more illegals in this country in any way until we know we can keep them safe. And ICE and school boards and teachers and police aren't able to do it because they're hamstrung by judges and the media and Leslie and everybody else. It's time to stop the raping.
All right.
I would think this would unite the left and the right.
Yeah, we got to leave it there, Ed and Leslie. But important to note that one of these young men was supposed to have a hearing about his status in January. He didn't show up, or it didn't happen, and it was moved to December. So there's clearly a problem with the system when we're putting off basic hearings a year later, and too much time has gone by. All right, Leslie and Ed, thank you.
Thank you.